Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. My name is Mike Manning, and each week we bring you a successful small business story from Triangle BNI. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here we call the Triangle. It's Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Have 29 chapters going strong, have 6 core groups trying to become full chapters, and almost 600 members each week that meet and pass business and help each other grow their business. So if you or someone you know is looking to start a business or grow a business, please come out and visit us. If you go to trianglebni.com in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button that says Find a Chapter. Click on that, and you'll scroll down a little bit, and you can look at each day. We have chapters in the morning, chapters for lunchtime, 5 days a week. So please find something in your part of town that works out for you and come visit and see what kind of successful people we have there. And this week, our guest is Jonathan Brothers with Glasgow Design Build. Jonathan's in RD 48. It is the next level BNI. Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. at the Maiden Inn in Cary. Jonathan, good to have you today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Mike.
So Jonathan is in the Maiden group in Cary. I think there's a couple chapters that meet there, one on a Monday morning and then you guys.
There might be another one that meets on Friday, but I
Okay.
can't swear to that.
All right. Good location. So if you're ever in the Cary area, please stop by. Jonathan, here we are on May, what are we, May 6th? Think like that? Did we pass Cinco de Mayo? Was yesterday? That's right.
Yes.
I had, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
we
Drinko de
celebrated.
Mayo was yesterday.
It's my in-laws' anniversary, and my father-in-law says that on the same day he lost his independence, Mexico gained theirs. So it's been a family laugh for years. So,
Nice.
but he lives in Texas, so we laugh about that, and everybody around there does too. But anyway, so we're here on Monday, May 6th, 2019. How's business so far? We're almost halfway through the year.
Business is awesome this year. The first 3 months, first quarter, I sold $360,000 worth of business. In
All
the
right.
first quarter, my original goal was 600 or 650. I've upped it to 800, but I'm probably going to talk to my father, my business partner, and we're going to have to probably bump it to 1 million.
You know that's going to ruin budget numbers for 2020, right? In a good way.
Well, he's the one that does the book, so that's okay.
So the goal was 800 for all of 2019.
Well, it was originally 600 or 650 for all of
Oh
2019.
my, okay.
Yeah, we did a backup and punt last year, the year before. We had turned a lot of money, but weren't making a lot of money.
Gotcha.
And so we kind of regrouped. And last year, we did half as much income as the year before, but made twice as much money.
Okay.
And that was through my business coach who came through BNI, who's actually in my group, Scott Moore.
Yes. Good
And
guy.
that was also talking to other people in my group who are successful and saying, hey, I'm doing okay, but I want to do better. And what can I do? So I talked to David Hellinger, who's in my group, LPL Financial. I talked to Scott Corbin, the realtor in the group, and we talked about and did some brainstorming. And then I worked with Scott. And so this year we were upping it by, I think, 15 or 20%.
Okay.
And after my dad said I can't take the other half of the year off, we decided to up the goal. So
We talk during the show, we talk a lot of things about how a BNI chapter works. And one of the neat things about BNI is not only are you getting referrals for business, but it's almost like a mastermind group. Kind of how you're talking about where you sit down and go, hey, here's where I am, or here are thoughts I have. And people with success in different fields can apply some of the things they've learned to what you're going through.
yeah, the great thing about it is no matter what you do, whether you're a realtor or a financial advisor or you sell Mary Kay products, we're
Mhm.
all in the people business. So
Yes.
that's the one thing that we all have in common is we're all in the people business. So I can go to someone else in my group and say, "Hey, I'm having trouble in this area," or they can come to me and say, "Hey, I'm having trouble in this area. What do you think? What can you do to help me?" And I think it wasn't Napoleon Hill, that was Think and Grow Rich. Who
I'm
wrote the
reading that book
mastermind
now.
who wrote the mastermind principle?
I hate sitting on this spot because I
Sorry.
can't recall it. No, that's okay.
But I mean, you bring it
Yeah,
up and that's what that book
yeah,
is basically about. So, yes.
yeah. No, it's a wonderful thing. Uh, Glasgow Design Build. You guys do kitchen, single room, and whole house remodels. as well as decks and new constructions.
That's correct.
Your favorite thing to do is what? You personally?
Personally, my favorite thing to do is a whole house remodel.
Okay.
And the reason I like to do that is because of the huge change. There are certain parts of reality shows that I do like, and that's the big reveal. And when I get to do that, it's a
Okay.
fun thing where you take something that came out of the '60s called wanted its house back,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
you
yeah.
bring it into 2019. It's a pretty dramatic thing, and I feel really good about that.
Right. And we're gonna get into the, remodeling shows because my wife watches those, and she's got me hooked on a couple of those, and, we'll talk about some things people may not know about because, Love It or List It has been here before. I believe they're back again, and I've talked to a couple of vendors that were involved, one vendor involved in the first one and one who might have a chance to be involved in the second one, and there's some interesting things I learned from the first time they were here. Anyways, in each BNI chapter, there is a featured speaker. And depending on the size of your chapter, it's either 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or 10 minutes. And each featured speaker is introduced with the member bio sheet. So that's how we do it here, Jonathan. So we're going to start with that today. Our speaker, Jonathan Brothers, Glasgow Design Build. Profession is, again, they remodel, and you guys actually do full construction
We
if
do.
needed. Okay.
Yes, we do.
Location and years in the business.
Location is generally in the Triangle.
Mhm.
I do some work up on Lake Gaston for friends and family. Unlike
Good
most business
call.
owners, I
Good
will do work for friends and family. But generally, we focus in the Triangle: Raleigh, Durham, Apex, Cary.
Mhm. Right, and you guys were formed in 2003.
We were formed in 2003.
Alright. Previous types of jobs. Now I have some of your work history. I'm not interested in those right now. I like to get people to go back to a memorable high school or right out of high school, college era job that was memorable for whatever reason.
Okay. I worked for a company called Bryant Industrial.
Okay.
And after about 3 years being there, Mr. Bryant and I both decided about the same time that I didn't need to work there anymore. I had hurt my back riding on a truck, or I'd hurt my back at work and was they had put me in the back of a truck. I'm a college student. I don't really know any better.
Yeah.
So I laid down on the toolbox, not thinking about how bad that looks for the company.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Bryant called and said, "Tell whoever that is on the back of the truck they're fired." And that was it.
But you learned a lot before then.
Yeah, I did.
Alright.
I had held various sundry jobs. I had worked at the original cookie company at the mall in
Nice.
Cary. I had worked for Fabco Industries. All generally construction related
Mhm.
businesses is what I did in college and high school.
Okay. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to Cary High School.
Went to Millbrook.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that you went to
so
Cary,
you're
so
like a unicorn as well.
well, you're
I
all
was born and grew up in Cary.
you were all the rich kids. Back when
Yes.
I was in high school, Cary, all the rich kids went to Cary, so
No,
I kid you not.
no. I believe you,
I
but that
kid you
was
not.
not part of that gig.
We actually our rival is Sanderson, and there was Sanderson was playing at Millbrook in football, and we got word that the Sanderson school announcements that day, they said the football games at 7 o'clock at Millbrook, leave early to avoid the cattle crossing. So, yes, we were picked on back then, and all the rich kids went to Cary, and if you live out there, you're in Cary. That's just the way it was back in 1979, so
Yeah.
fine people. Don't get me wrong. We're glad you're here today.
Thank
Where'd
you.
you go to college?
I went to UNCG,
Oh, good,
University of
okay.
North Carolina with girls.
With girls,
Yeah, the
okay.
girl to guy ratio was about 3 to 1, so it was a good college to go
Was that
to.
actually on the application, or did you figure that out when you went to visit?
I think somebody told me before I went to visit, and I figured it out pretty quick.
Did that move up your list of
Yes,
colleges?
very quickly.
Kept you in state, so your dad was appreciative of saving the out-of-state tuition,
No,
right?
actually, I was a pretty solid C student,
Okay, alright.
and, so I had 2 choices. It was either UNCG or Brevard.
Yeah,
UNCG was an actual 4-year college where
okay.
I could get a degree and not have to go somewhere else.
And had my dad and I grew up here in Raleigh, and I graduated in '79, had my dad and mom and dad not given me permission to go out of state to Tennessee, I would've gone to UNCG as well because, like, as I tell people, like my parents, Carolina did not like my, SAT scores. I don't think even think I was on the wait list for Carolina, so
Mm.
thankfully Tennessee let me in, but UNCG I did like. Good little campus, so, going back, you're talking about the job you got, you that you decided to retire from, at an early age. Was that the did you grow up with people that were building stuff? Dad, grandfather, all those people?
So every 5 to 7 years, my mom would say, "Honey, I want a new house, new kid, new husband," and it was always
Yeah.
a new house. And
Okay.
so my family we always remodeled our own houses. We would go in, tear out the carpet, tear up the floors, lay new floors. Mom would steam the wallpaper, paint the
Oh god, I
house. I
remember
mean,
doing
the whole
that.
9 yards. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And so my mom's side of the family, my grandfather was tool and die, and my uncles were tool and die. Matter of fact, when my mom's youngest brother died, I don't know how many patents he had, but it was a lot.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is almost like a barn raising back in the musicals back in the day, right? Get the whole family over, raise the house, right?
Something like that.
So it's in your blood. You didn't have a choice probably when you got to college, right?
Pretty much.
But you knew yeah, obviously you enjoyed it,
I do.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. New house or new husband or new kids. Tough call. Huh. Oh, steaming wallpaper. That's the worst. For those of you who aren't old enough to understand how to get wallpaper off the wall, it is awful.
Yeah.
We had to do that. Our first house we bought in Atlanta, this would have been 94, and we bought an older house and they had wallpaper, and that was just, oh, you know, talk about fights between couples,
Yeah.
trying to get that stuff off and who's gonna ugh, I hated it.
And the beauty of it is it's coming back now. So in 10 years, we'll be doing it again.
If they'd go by, yeah, oh gosh. Oh, hated that. Family information,
Um, I which
brothers and sisters?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
sorry. 2 brothers, one of them lives in Oklahoma, and the other one, unfortunately died in
Oh,
2007.
sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Are you youngest, oldest? Where are you?
I'm the baby, you can't tell.
So did they pound on you growing up?
Yes, my oldest brother, we got over the beating stage when he left for the Navy when he was 18.
And only because he left the house
Yeah,
did the
pretty
beating
much,
stuff.
yep.
So you were the trial balloon for everything, right? If it could run, fly, roll, they said, "Here, Jonathan, come here. You sit
Yes.
here."
Yes, pretty
Okay.
much.
All
My
right.
my brother broke my arm when I was 6, my oldest brother, and I would introduce him that way. So finally, when we were adults, he started introducing himself as, "Hi, I'm Lee, Jonathan's brother. I broke his arm when he was 6." So I stopped doing that.
Was it a good story?
Yeah, actually, well, no, that one wasn't that
No.
great. I was tired of being picked on, so I started fighting back, and he just picked me
Yeah.
up and tossed me.
Okay. And I go back to the moms raising boys. Did your mom have brothers?
She had 2 younger brothers. My
Okay,
mom was
so
the
at least she
oldest.
saw that.
Yes,
Because I
yes.
love the moms who did not have a brother, all of a sudden trying to raise 2 boys and wonder, "What in the world is this?" It's like, "It's boys."
Oh, yeah.
You know? I had a brother, I've got 2 boys. It's
Yeah.
boys. That's just what they do, so
My mom used to say this is exactly how she would say it too. "I bet you lie awake at night dreaming of new ways to drive me crazy."
she
It's like,
was
"Nope,
right.
I'm sorry, mom. It comes naturally. We don't do it on purpose."
It's just, "Hey, y'all watch this moments," you know? Hobbies and activities of interest.
Well, so right now we're in the playoffs, and I'm not just a playoffs person. I love the Carolina Hurricanes and I love hockey. Even though I'm a Southern boy and didn't grow up with it, I love hockey. But other than that, or if I'm not doing hockey stuff, I love to be on the lake. I do an enormous amount of wake surfing. If I could figure out a way, if I was young enough to be a wake surfing
Mhm,
pro, I would ride around on a boat, wake surf, and drink beer all day.
okay. Can you ice skate? Have you ice
I
skated?
have ice skated, yes.
I can imagine you and your 2 brothers on skates with sticks. No puck, just sticks.
Yes, beating
Just
each
make a
other.
game out of
Mhm,
that on
yeah.
the frozen pond in the back.
We would try that, but we grew up here in
Yeah,
Raleigh, so
wouldn't
there's no
work, would
frozen pond.
oh, that's great YouTube potential right there, just 3 boys with sticks, right? City of residence and for how long?
I live in Cary. Well, technically, I guess I live at Lake Gaston right now.
Okay.
My dad owns a house up there, and with the work I've got going on, I'm there. But I grew up in Cary, and I've been in this area for, I guess, 48 years now, since I'm 14 with 34 years of
There you go. I
experience.
like that. I like that. Key to your success.
I say determination, but it's really kind of stupidity. I didn't know any better to quit.
I like it.
Um, I I got into business and didn't know what I didn't know
Mhm.
until I joined BNI, and sometimes I still don't know what I don't know, but I just wouldn't quit. I wouldn't stop. My work ethic, is what has always
Good.
gotten me by.
That'll get you through tough times. I know that we laugh about not knowing what you don't know or too stupid to stop, but you
Yeah.
know what? Sometimes you're the last one standing when that happens. So now there's a few people watching the show today haven't met you. They will know you much better by the end of the show, but tell us something no one knows about you.
Something no one knows about
What's the
me.
last thing you talked about when you're the speaker in your chapter?
Ooh, hockey, actually, but people know a lot about that about me, and I put on my bio that I can quote the Princess Bride back to front, but people that know me know that as well. I'm
I
a
have that on my notes.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm a very open person.
Okay.
I There's not a lot that people really don't know about me.
First
Um,
job in high school.
First job in high school was working for Fabco Industries,
Okay.
but, I guess something nobody knows about me, throwing myself on the sword, I had stayed up too late and had indulged a little too much the night before and fell asleep on the job, and the superintendent walked in and said, "Get up, come on, I need your help," and he never said anything to me about it. I said, "Stanley, what's the deal there? You never said anything about the fact you found me sleeping on the job." He said, "Yeah, it happened to me a couple times when I was younger, so I really wasn't too worried about it." So that was the end of that discussion, but it never happened
Yeah.
again.
Paying it forward. I
Yes.
like that. All right. Now, Princess Bride, my family loves Princess Bride, and if we won't spend a lot of time on this, but I love that movie. If you're a fan watching the show, if you're a fan of that. So what got you to quote it? And how many times have you watched it?
Um, I don't know how many
That
times
many?
I
Okay.
watched. I really don't. My one of my best friends up on Lake Gaston has a doc, and it's done in a bar, and the theme is the Princess Bride. We have
Nice.
ROUSs,
Yep.
we have Humperdinck, Buttercup, the whole 9
Oh, I
yards.
love it. Such a
Um,
good movie.
we watched we did a thing in college where we watched The Princess Bride and indulged every time they said certain things.
Yes.
Humperdinck,
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable, Buttercup, and we got to the part where, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya.
Yep.
You killed my father. Prepare to die."
Yep.
We were supposed to finish what was ever in the cup.
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm stopping at half, fellas. I'm good. That was a rough night." But it was a good night. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
that was probably what started it, I would
Okay.
say, that
Love
evening.
that movie. All right, Glasgow Design Build. Your dad started it in 2003. He was an engineer.
Yes.
Where's the name of the company come from?
My father was at the lawyer's office creating the business and had no idea what to call it. And my father lived on Glasgow Road
Oh, okay.
in McGregor Downs,
Alright.
and he and the lawyer actually both lived on Glasgow Road in
Okay.
McGregor Downs. He said, "Well, it's an adventure. How about ventures?" And we both live on Glasgow Road. How about Glasgow Ventures? My dad didn't know any better. Said, "Okay, great."
Yeah.
So that's what we named it, Glasgow, or that's what he named it, Glasgow Ventures.
Oh, very cool.
And
And it now from reading the bio on you guys, and by the way, for all the people who didn't go to Cary or Millbrook, there is no McGregor Downs near Millbrook High School. I'll just say that to confirm my point earlier in the show. It sounded like this was a second career for your dad. He had retired as an engineer,
Mhm.
and this was in his blood as well, right?
Yeah, he needed something to keep him out of trouble once he
Namely the
retired.
house.
So, yeah, and out of the house. And so, yeah, he started doing that and started working with other people. And, he started out working out with friends and family. And I was working for a national builder at the time. So I wasn't actually part of the company when it was first created.
You came on about 2006?
Yes.
Okay. And when I tell people, because my brother and I used to have 2 small businesses we started, we've since sold them, but I always got the look from people like, "Ooh, family business." And my brother and I are good because our skill sets and interests are completely different. He likes payroll, taxes, insurance, sitting at home behind a computer, nobody bothering him, and I just wanna talk all day. So ours works great. How'd you 2 do together?
We do great together.
Okay.
A lot of people that I talk to me about our business and how we work together and what goes on. And dad understands what his strengths are.
Mhm.
I know what my strengths are, and they complement. I don't want to be behind a computer. I don't want to do taxes. I don't want to do the books. I don't want to do any of that.
Yep.
Matter of fact, when dad retires, I'm probably going to be in trouble, except for the fact that I'm in a BNI group. So I've got a
Yeah, you've
CPA
got
and all those things,
yep.
right? But we know what our strengths are and what the things we're not good at. I don't like to use the word weaknesses, but the things that
Yeah.
we're not good at, and they complement each other very well.
So in 2006, when you came aboard, what did the vision become, and did it change from when your dad started it in 2003?
Um, that's a good question. So the vision stayed about the same. We weren't even really remodeling back then. I was doing stuff for realtors. We were doing punch work and things
Okay.
like that. Because when I came onto the business, it was like, well, I'll do this for a little while and then I'll go work for another national builder. I hadn't really
Oh, okay.
planned on
Mm,
being in business for myself. So it stayed like that for about 2 years. And then we started doing remodeling, getting bigger jobs, things like that. And then about that time, the my old boss from the company I worked for had gone into business for himself. He actually bought Glasgow Ventures from my father and I went to work for him.
mm. And this is about the time of the recession,
That was
a
a
little bit before.
little before the
Okay.
recession. And then 2009 hit,
Mhm.
and my boss had 5 kids. And it's like, well, it's either me or his 5 kids. And I'm
Yeah,
going to lose that every time. I harbor no ill will. Matter of fact, I still call David and get advice and
good,
things like that at the
good.
time. And all I asked was, is, can I have the name of my company back?
Mhm.
And he said, yeah, sure. So we started Glasgow Ventures more or less over again because he had taken it and kind of turned it into something else. And so we started in the recession,
Mhm.
working for doing what few real estate closings were out there and things like that. We were doing punch lists um and things like that for people.
Anything you get your hands on, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. We're with Jonathan Brothers, Glasgow Design Build. He's in RD 48 next level. They meet Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. at the Maiden Inn in Cary. We've had realtors on the show, a couple that you know that you work with, Jed and Trinity and Amy. And it we that recession weeded out that world fast, and yours as well, didn't it?
Yes.
And you guys literally just begging the phone to ring,
Hmm.
or were you doing all the calling saying, "Do you have a door to put up, or do you have blinds to put up?"
It was a little bit of both. Begging, hoping the phone's going to ring, and then part of it knowing people. So I still had some contacts from before
Mhm.
with Fonville Morrissey and some of the other real estate agents in the area. And then my family, we've been in the Raleigh Moravian Church for since I was born. I was baptized there, and so we got a lot of business through people from church, and so they would have us come over and, you know, hang a door, do a window, painting, trim, whatever we could get our hands on is what we did.
Did it help that you guys were kinda lean and mean and not one of the bigger companies with more mouths to feed?
I think it was, I wore a tool belt for most of that time.
Yeah.
I did a lot of the work. Dad helped with some of it, and then I had a few people I would bring in here and there that when they needed work or whatever, they'd call me and I'd say, "Sure, come on, give me a hand."
Did you remember your first kinda decent sized job coming out of the recession where you guys could finally or the first couple of months where you knew, "Okay, I think we can take a breath here." You're not set, but at least you could take a breath feeling like you made it through.
That actually lasted about 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because even coming out of the recession, um, I mean, they were saying we're out of a recession, but
Mhm.
we weren't like 2007, 2006 out of the recession. We
Yeah.
were slowly coming out of it, so we were still working it. And so it was about the time I joined BNI, believe it or not, back in 2015 that I finally said, "Okay,
Yeah.
hey, um, we got a few large jobs." It started to turn about the time that I got um, my license for my general contractor's license, which was 2012 or 13. But it it took a while.
And that allowed you to do different jobs once you got that contractor license?
It did. So you or as a general contractor, you can do jobs over 30,000. Anything over 30,000, you cannot, or at least you're not supposed
Yeah,
to do those types of jobs. There are some people out there that will circumnavigate the system, and try to do that. But as a general contractor, anything over 30,000, you can't do without a license legally.
I've heard stories of people breaking that into 2 $16,000 jobs just a day apart.
Yes,
And but and we also on this show try to tell people what to look out for, and that's one of the red flags. If you're looking to redesign or let's say redo your kitchen and it's gonna be $35,000 and the person you're talking to wants to do anything like that, you actually the first question is, are you a general contractor, right?
yep.
And then so that means and ask them if they have a license. Do they need to show proof or is it good enough if they say they're a general contractor? Can I look you up?
You can look it up. You can
Okay.
go to the North Carolina General Contractors Board and punch in Glasgow Design Build, and it will pull up my license, which I think is 70353.
Nice. I like
I
it.
think that's what
Take
it
your
is.
word
It's
for it.
one of
All right.
those I can look it up and
Yeah.
find it. I think it was Einstein that said, "I don't remember my home phone number because I don't want to fill my brain with stuff that I can look up." So
I like that.
that's my excuse anyway.
When people are redoing their homes whether it's a room or a wing or the whole house, who else needs to be licensed to walk in their house?
So anybody that is doing any of what I consider the PM&E, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, they're all need to be licensed,
Okay.
as far as in that part of the business. Um,
And the other thing I've learned from other people in the market is you tell us when you have to pull a permit to do some work on a house.
so the way the law reads
Yes.
now, which is a recent change, if you are spending more than 15 grand, you have to pull a permit. If if I'm going to do a job over 15 grand, I have to pull a permit. If I'm redoing a project where I am changing anything structural, if I'm changing the layout, say a bathroom, if I'm changing the layout of the bathroom, I'm moving the tub, I have to pull a permit. Now, if I'm under 15 grand and I'm not changing any of that stuff, then I don't have to pull a permit.
If you're adding a deck for 10 grand, no permit?
Oh, no, you have if I'm rebuilding the deck that's there,
Yeah.
I don't have to have a permit
Okay.
under 15 grand. If I'm adding on to it, I have to pull a permit. And I will actually pull a permit if it's borderline,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull a permit
Oh, yeah.
because I get calls from real estate agents that say, "Hey, my buyer didn't get a permit when they redid their attic, or they did this deck, or they did that."
Mhm.
And I've gotten somewhat of a reputation where I can help people with that. And they ask me how much is it going to cost? I will give them a range based on what it is. I said, but I'm going to take a $3,000 deposit, and then we're going to pull a permit, and then I'm going to have to get an inspector out there to tell me what
Yeah.
has to be done. And most of the time they'll work with me, but occasionally, if they find something where like it's supposed to have R30 insulation in the ceiling and they find something that says R15, I'm tearing out that whole ceiling and that
Yeah.
just up the price.
I know most homeowners probably don't know, and I include myself in that, don't know much about how that's supposed to be done. And I think most of us know an electrician or plumber should be licensed. We know a general contractor should, but the price, the 15,000 to 30,000, we're probably not aware of if we don't know anybody in the industry. If I hire you and you're not the pull the permit type of guy as you are, and work gets done and something happens and an inspector or the state finds out about that, am I on the hook as well as you if there's any trouble coming down the road?
So generally, it's going to be on the contractor that did it.
Okay.
However, when you go to sell the house, you have to disclose that. And if you disclose that you didn't pull a permit, I'm not an active licensed real estate agent, so I can't tell you all the ins and outs. But my understanding is, well, I know you have to disclose it. So basically, you finish an attic, it's really not worth the money you put in it if you didn't get the license because they're not going to give you credit for it. And I have been told by some reputable agents that there are some mortgage companies that won't even give you a mortgage on a house that has unpermitted work.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ooh, that's good to know. How would if you're buying my house, how would you know if something was permitted to do the work? Is there actual paperwork I'd have to forward to you?
Well, so if you if you have the paperwork, that helps. If you don't, you can actually go on the Wake County GIS
Mhm.
and go into the tax system, and it'll tell you that in 2009, um, this house was updated, and it will give you a brief list of what was done. So
If a permit was pulled,
if a permit was pulled,
what happened if what but I didn't pull a permit and I'm trying to sell the house?
then hopefully you've hired a reputable agent
Okay.
that will ask questions
All
and
right.
will say, "Hey, I see that this house looks like it's been updated in the last 5 years. I went on the tax website and there's nothing showing that you had it permitted."
Okay.
So,
All right. That can get expensive, can it?
yes.
And my guess is if you're doing work and didn't pull a permit and you're in the middle of the work, and I guess if cranes are loud or builders are loud one day and your neighbor gets mad, the neighbor could call the city, go, "Hey, I got it. My next door neighbor's working on something and I'm mad at him. Can you send an inspector out?" Or
That
some sort of trouble happens, right?
that has happened more,
Ooh,
not to me,
right.
not to
There you
me.
go.
But yes, I that has
You've
happened.
heard stories,
Yes,
haven't you?
I've had stories.
But your approach is correct. At the end of the day, it's not worth it.
No. It's really not. I mean, so I pull permits and it adds, another 6 or $800 to the bottom line. But that could save you 60,000. Let's say
Oh,
it's
yeah.
10%, right? Or actually that would be 1% at
Mhm.
60,000 if my degree's in history,
There
not
you go.
mathematics.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, you're talking 1% on a $60,000 job.
Yeah.
It's like, really? It's not saving you anything
Yeah.
over the long term. And if somebody says, "Oh, you don't need a permit," I don't, I'm like, you'll have to go find 2 men in a truck with a taillight
Yeah.
warranty.
And
I,
they're out there
yes,
to do work, but we recommend folks, if you're listening, you getting ready to do any work on the house, please get with somebody reputable because it could. I've heard a couple of horror stories. I know you've heard many. So one of the neat things about people on the show that we love to highlight is usually non-work related, and you're an Eagle Scout.
yes,
That is cool. My nephew is one, and I knew stuff was involved. I knew it took a while, but until he explained it to me one day, I had no idea what it took to become an Eagle Scout. So congratulations
thank you,
for doing that because
thank
that's
you,
a huge accomplishment.
especially for somebody with ADHD.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay. And I told him, I said, you better put that way at the top of your resume because that's a guy thing. I think it's anybody thing, but I think a lot of guys will appreciate that, especially if they've ever been in scouts. But that's pretty cool. And it's up to once you turn 19, it's too old.
18.
Once you're 18, it's too
Yes,
old. Okay.
yeah.
When did you start doing scouts or Cub Scouts,
I
anything like
never
that?
did Cub Scouts, but even though I wasn't old enough, my father's an Eagle Scout,
Oh, neat.
and the middle son as well is also an Eagle Scout. And my dad was always active in the scouting program. My
Okay.
mom used to say that Boy Scouting was the other woman, because that's how active he was as an adult. But I would go on camping trips with with the scout troop that my family was active in before I was old enough because I would go with my
Oh,
dad.
okay.
And so I have memories of being on camping trips with my father,
Okay.
Boy Scouting. Um, I remember one night I tripped over a tent line and cracked my head open and ended up with 3 stitches in my forehead. My dad was the one who took me to the
Yeah.
hospital.
Did you
That's
try
what
to blame that on your older brother too, but it
No,
didn't
no,
work?
no, that was me walking in the dark with no flashlight. That's all me.
Lesson
So,
learned,
yes,
right?
lesson learned.
Could you be on one of those reality shows where you have to live on an island? I bet you could for a little while, couldn't
I
you?
probably could, but
Yeah.
that's just not my bag. It's
But
my
you'd try
my
it for a week,
my
wouldn't
bag.
you?
Yeah, actually, I would.
Yeah.
I'm kinda
Just
that yeah.
bucket list type thing.
Yeah, I would. I would.
All right, we talked earlier. We're here with Jonathan Brothers of Glasgow Design Build. If you're getting ready to do anything in your house or build a new one, please give him a call. As you can see, he's a reputable guy, pulls permits when he's supposed to, but they've been in business for years. And if the people that made it through the recession, of what I've come to know, and I think I'm correct saying this, are the quality companies that work hard and know what they're doing. Because if you were just a fly by night part time thing, you would not have made it through those 4 years. So give them a call if you guys need anything done. We talked earlier in the show about all these, remodeling shows and all that and how they can do everything in an hour but you have been a part of one.
Yes.
Alright, so
S
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the 10-minute that I do for my group is called Confessions of the Reality TV Star, and the biggest confession is reality TV isn't.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so Jed Grunwald with Hunter
He's
Rowe,
been on the show. I think he was guest number 2. Yep, Jed
I
was.
think that's what he told
Yep.
me. I called him up and got a little bit of info on
Well,
it.
good.
So, um, he called me up, and I had met him accidentally, but because of BNI, I'd
Mhm.
met him accidentally,
Beautiful
but
thing.
and we had gotten to know each other. I had done some work for him, and he called me up and said, "Hey, you wanna go do a reality TV show with me?" And I said, "Sure, what the hell? Sounds like fun." So that's kinda how that started. It was called He Sells, She Sells, and it was actually Jed and Ashley's show, and I am very appreciative that I got to enjoy that experience. Um, and it was one of those $1,000,000 experiences. I don't know that I would do it again for $1,000,000 because it was a fast 3 well, it felt like 6 months, but probably 2 months of my life.
What all was involved on your end?
Um, so I was the guy that had to make it all happen. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jed and Ashley worked on the site. They were there. Jed was there a lot, actually. Ashley was, they had recently had their baby.
Mhm.
And so she was pretty tied up with that.
And
Um,
let me back up. So the premise of the show was they both went out to find a house to flip.
right.
And whoever brought back or sold it the best to the other one, that's how they decided which one to go with? Okay,
Correct.
alright.
Correct.
And so then you're brought in.
I'm brought in as the general contractor.
Okay.
I pulled the permits, I ran the schedule, I put things together, so to speak. Jed brought in a lot of the labor, with a lot of the people that he'd worked with over the years, and we kind of put it all together. And the thing that let's see, so the producer was Australian, and we're at this house and we're looking at it and we're making sure that it's going to work for the show. And he says, "So, guys, I got to let you know something. This house is perfect for you guys. You go in there, throw a little bit of carpet down, a little bit of paint, some lipstick, some rouge, bam, get your money, get out. It's perfect. But for reality TV, there's not enough drama here." So, this house was a side split level built in 63. So he says, "And this is like the stupidest layout I've ever seen in my life. So what happens? What would it take to the budget? And how much would it add to the bottom, the timeline if we took this floor out right here and put it all on one level?" And I gave him one of these, my cousin Vinny. "You're serious about this, right?" Because I'm looking at this guy like he's got 4 holes in his head. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, "All right, give me a few minutes." I crawl underneath, I'm looking around, I'm figuring it out, and I come out and I say, "Well, at least 10 grand and probably 2 weeks on the schedule." He says, "Great, let's make it happen." I
Wait, you're gonna raise a split level?
No, we're gonna drop the split level.
Oh.
So we dropped this floor 3 3 or 4 feet, made it 11, 12 feet. So where you walk in, for those of you that aren't familiar with the side split, you walk in to the house, you've got a little foyer, which is right there, that's about 6 by 6,
Mhm.
and it's on one level. You take a right, go down 2 steps to a bigger room, and then you go up and take a left. There's the dining room, the kitchen, and then another family room. And then from that level, you take another right and go up to the 3 bedrooms. And so he wanted to make the bottom level and the side split on the same level. And which doesn't seem like a big deal, except for the fact that this house was built on a foundation which we don't use anymore.
Okay.
So the way it's designed, you need the floor system to hold this house together. So we had to get, an engineer out there, and I scratched my head. This is the only part of the show. It worried me for about 6 weeks until we had it all figured out. And even when we were doing it, I was still worried that the house was going to blow out.
What did the engineer say when he showed up?
Well, we had two.
All right.
One of them didn't like my idea, and I'm kind of a beta plus male, and he's was definitely an alpha male, so we kind of rubbed each other the wrong way. And he basically said, "Well, if Jonathan's got a guy he likes to use, just let Jonathan do it." Okay, so I called another engineer, Fritz. Fritz came out, and I talked him through what we needed to do. And Fritz's idea was actually easier than my idea, and the house is still standing 2 or 3 years later. So
Oh,
it must have
really?
worked out. But yeah, no, it really it really bothered me for a long time until it actually we got it there and got it set up and braced off and everything was done.
How long did all this take?
Um, I think it took 6 or 8 weeks. We took basically a 6-month timeline and
Yeah.
crammed it into about 6 weeks worth of work.
And the show wasn't picked up, right?
No, it
That was
wasn't.
a bummer.
No, actually it was. I say a joke about the $1 million experience. It was a fun experience and we learned a lot. And if it had been picked up, Jed and we discussed a lot of things on how we would do it differently. We felt like we had it all worked out for the
Mhm.
next one, but I guess I must have blown it because it sure as heck wasn't Jed and Ashley that ruined the show.
What is your do you watch these shows at all?
I
And which
used
ones do you
I
like?
used to watch them a lot. My favorite show is actually Homes on Homes,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
hated Mike Holmes when I first started watching that show
Okay.
because there are certain things about it that while he's right, it would only cost X amount of dollars more to do it this way, and it would be better. I think, but what because my background is production building, if I'm building 30,000 houses a year and I do an extra $400 plus the profit, plus the markup and everything else, it actually expands the price of that house a lot more than just what he says a few dollars more.
Mm.
And so if I'm selling my house and it's the same as the other house, but let's say I've got Anderson windows in it, so I spent 10 grand more on it, people aren't going to pay 10 grand more because I've got Anderson windows.
Yeah.
They're going to buy the other house. But one day after watching the show quite a bit, I started learning about him. He actually had to go to classes to tone himself down
Oh, okay.
and not be quite so gruff to people. And a lot of times on his shows, he has a foundation, and the foundation will say, Mike, you can't do this. We don't have enough money in the budget. And he says, the heck I can't. And he reaches in his pocket and pulls out the money to do what he feels is right. And I respect that. But what did it one day, what turned it around is one day I was looking at something. I was fixing some crazy something or other that somebody had done. And I said, that's unacceptable. I went, oh my God, I sound just like Mike Holmes. So that's probably my favorite one because Mike, unlike a lot of the rest of them, and don't get me wrong, they do a great job. And I'm not ragging on any other shows. Mike to me is the most real
Okay.
reality
That was my next
person up
question.
there,
All right.
and I relate to that. So that's probably why.
Yeah, I don't like there's a couple shows out there. I don't like the drama they create because we know you're gonna find a load-bearing wall. Don't make it look like, "Oh my god, we were
Yes.
not expecting." It's like, "Come on, people.
Yeah,
You had to have known that."
yeah.
It
The
yeah.
Hillary moments,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, good. No, we'll leave it at that. I don't even watch that show anymore. It drives me nuts, so. Now, on your website, I like the way you list things where the work you guys do, it says kitchen remodels, single room remodels, and in parentheses, you have HGTV inspired home. Have people actually come to you guys and said, "I saw this kitchen or this room on this show, and I want it this way"?
Um, they have. a few times here or there. Um, and I have done similar stuff. I haven't done the whole tear down the floor and put it on the
Yeah.
same level. But a lady called me after the show from Seattle and said, "Hey, can you come up here? We're having a
Oh,
shortage of contractors, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, my first reaction was, "Man, that would be awesome." Then I looked at all I've got going on. I'm like, "Yeah, no, I can't do that. And I'm not licensed in Seattle. I'm sorry." But I think it would have been a fun gig.
how'd she find you?
Um, she saw it on either my Facebook post or my mother is my biggest promoter. Since I'm
Nice.
the baby of the family, the only person that kind of usurped me was the firstborn grandson. He
Yeah,
took my
yeah,
place, but
yeah.
other than that, my mom, she promotes me very
Mhm.
heavily and
Okay.
posted a lot about the show on Facebook. And this was one of my mother's friends,
Okay.
and and I don't know how my mom knew this lady in Seattle, but that's Facebook.
Yeah.
It was one of my mom's friends, and she contacted me that way.
Beautiful. Love
And,
word of mouth.
if it had been 2009, I'd have
You're
packed my
gone.
stuff
Yeah.
and gone.
Yeah. And I can relate with you, moving down the pecking order. I have a grandson who's 9 months and about 10 days, and I always try to work him into the show. So thanks for giving me the lead in. And I have two boys, and I told my youngest son, this is like the royal family in England. Dude, you just moved down a slot. You're number three because Oliver, my grandson, and then my boys in the order they were born. And like, Cameron, sorry, dude, you're three now. And
Wow.
yeah. So, and the bad news for Cameron is if he has a child, he'll then become number 4 just for having a
Oh,
child. So,
wow.
yeah. So I respect your mom on that because I mean, grandkid, that's the best club to be in.
Yeah.
I just for all the people in the grandparent club, it's the best. You can just leave when you want, get all the fun. It's the best. So, is there a favorite you talked about the thing you like doing the most is doing a whole home remodel.
Right.
Are there particular rooms if you had to do just one room you enjoy doing? Or actually, let me ask this, which room is the most beneficial to do to the bottom line?
Kitchens and baths are
Okay.
are always, as a general rule, the most beneficial. I think, and don't quote me on the numbers, somebody will probably Google it and tell me I'm wrong, but it's usually about an 80% nationally, it's an 80% return on your investment. In our areas,
Oh,
in a lot
okay.
of cases, you'll get, and what I mean by that is if you spend 100 grand, they'll give you 80 worth of credit.
Yeah.
Where if you do other places in your house, it's a lot less.
Oh, yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
but in our area, for whatever reason, it seems to come back at pretty close to 100% and sometimes more, depending upon the location of the house and things like that. But as a general, I can tell people you're going to get 80%, where
Okay.
it's usually 50 or less on other rooms in your house.
My wife, we moved, about a year ago, and she was on one of the sites, I don't know if it's Zillow or whatever site she was on, just looking at houses. And the red flag for us was when there was no picture of either the master bedroom or the kitchen. I mean, those are the 2 hot spots, right?
Mhm.
Master bedroom and bath and the kitchen,
Yep.
right? Ah, so when we saw it, we're like, we just moved on to another.
Yep. No.
What does curb appeal do for the house? And
Um,
what kind of things from a contractor standpoint, remodeling standpoint, have you recommended and seen work in the past?
um, as far as like if they're doing resale or
Yeah,
just in general.
we'll do both.
Well, I learned it um the second company I worked at. If you can't get the person out of the car, you're not going to sell the house.
Yeah,
So if from the street you look at the house and the shutters are falling off and the grass isn't cut and
yeah,
there's trash everywhere or there's pollen all over it,
yeah.
they're going to look at the house and go, yeah, they're going to scratch you off the list. They're not even going to they're barely going to slow the car down. As far as that goes, but like if you have a plain Jane house, adding a front porch does a huge amount for curb
Really?
appeal. It will completely change the look of a house
Wow.
by adding a front porch. And it doesn't have to be like a big one. In Raleigh we have those colonial 5 4 doors where um there's no front porch.
Yeah.
It's just that flat
Mhm.
front. You put a front porch on it, it changes the whole look of the house. It's still a colonial,
Yeah.
because at least for me, when I remodel something, it should always look like it's been there outside of maybe some fresh paint
Gotcha.
or something like that. You would be,
Mhm.
I would have to be really hungry for you to try to get me to put a modern addition on a Victorian
Yeah.
home. I'd have to be, like, starving.
Would you change the door too?
I would.
Okay.
Well, I take that back. It depends. So if it's already a nice ornate door in keeping with the house, then maybe you add a fresh coat of paint.
Okay.
But if it's a, you know, what we call, if you go to Beaufort, they'll call it a cross and Bible pattern, or some of us call it a 6-panel door.
Okay.
If it's a standard street 6-panel door on it, yeah, changing your front door can change the look of the house a lot.
In minimal cost to do
Minimal
both?
cost. Yep.
Huh, front porch, hadn't thought about that.
Now, I mean, if you do a full,
Yeah,
on front porch, yeah, that
yeah.
that can get expensive. But you do just a small covered kind of stoop.
Going back to all of 2018 or the first part of 2019, either one, what percentage of your revenue can you tie back to your BNI chapter?
2018, I don't even remember the stats.
Okay.
My sense of it is probably 60%. And I would have to do the actual math, but in the first quarter, I think I said I sold 350 or
Yeah,
$60,000. I can trace 310 of that back to BNI, either directly or indirectly. So it was
beautiful.
either a direct referral from someone in my group or another group,
Yep,
or it's a referral from a
referral.
referral,
Yeah.
which those are awesome, and
Well,
being
that's
able
the
to tie
ultimate
those back.
compliment
Yes.
is when somebody you did work for will refer you out. And folks, we talk each week about the power of BNI. I mean, that's a great example right there. If you look at 60%, 80% of a contractor and a remodeler, numbers are pretty good. But again, that's what we build in like, know, and trust in BNI to help grow the business. So if you or someone you know is trying to start or grow a business, I think we prove each week why it's good to do. What are the plans for the rest of 2019? Any big projects you want to tackle that you
Um,
haven't yet? Is there a bucket list for remodelers?
I don't really have a bucket list for my projects and what I'm doing. Mostly I want to keep reinforcing the relationships that I
Uh,
have. My real estate agents, I have a designer, Adrian Glenn with Adrian Glenn Designs. She's at the Fox and the Hound. I don't
mhm.
remember
North
which
Hills?
North
Yep.
Hills. She is my number one referral partner. Like
Really?
a massive amount of my business comes from her.
Okay.
So I do my best to keep her
And you hope that they don't add a
happy.
remodeler to their chapter.
That's right, because then I'm in trouble. But um, as far as the bigger projects, I've got a large garage coming up. I just started a screen porch and deck remodel, and I'm finishing up a whole house remodel. But that's kind of one of the things I did with my business coach was we looked at last year, we looked at the 80/20 rule.
Mhm.
So 80% of my income was coming from 20% of my projects.
Yep.
So we're focusing on that 20% this year. So we're looking at doing kitchens, baths, um, and larger projects, whole house remodels, garage add-ons, things like that. So I guess those would be my bucket lists.
For the people doing whole house remodels, are they usually empty nesters by then? And does that mean they're committed to staying in the house? Is that what that tells you?
No, most of the time, what I've been finding with whole house remodels, they're not empty nesters. Empty nesters are usually downsizing,
Mhm.
and they don't want the hassle. They're like, I want to go and do this, I want to do that. They're not looking for the hassle of a whole house remodel. Most of the whole house remodels are the people that are second, third time home buyers that want they're moving in or moving like they're moving to the last one I did. The whole house was in downtown Cary, and they moved in from Holly Springs, and they bought a ranch from, it had probably been remodeled 3 times and added on to twice, but it still looked like it was from the '70s. And she had 3 kids, married, excuse me, husband, wife, 3 kids, and they wanted to be back in Cary, and so they bought a house that they could turn into something that they would love and live in for years to come. And that's what I've been finding that a lot of the whole house remodels have been are families that are second and third time home buyers as opposed to the last home.
Will they find the location they want? It may not be the exterior looks kind of what they want, but the interior not quite, but they love the location. So that's when they think about remodeling the
Yep.
interior? Okay.
They will
Alright.
remodel the interior, and, one of the things that's helped a lot with that, um, and I hate to keep giving out these shameless plugs, but they've,
Please
um,
do.
they've come out with, in the last couple of years, what's called, a renovation home loan. So it's a
Yes.
construction loan,
Mhm.
and so people will buy a house, and they will give them a loan based on what it's gonna be worth when they're done with the remodel.
Really?
And, shameless plug, Sherry Riano team. She's in my chapter. She does a phenomenal job with that. So
Wow. So how far out will they go on what they think the house will be worth? They gotta go at least 5 years, right?
I that part of it, I don't know how that
Okay.
works because that's not I know what I do well.
You don't care. You just want the number. Yeah.
Well, and,
You
not
do.
true, not true,
Okay.
because one of the things
Mm.
and one of the parts of my process is I see myself as a counselor. So I wanna make sure people are making good decisions for the money they spend, or at least they're making informed decisions.
Okay.
So no, I don't want just it to appraise. I want it to be worth not just what trying to think of how to say this. Not just what it's gonna be they'll give them the money for, but what it's really gonna be worth.
Gotcha. Okay.
'Cause, one of the first questions I ask people when I go to talk to them is, "How long you gonna be in the house?" Because if they tell me, "Oh, it's 3 to 5 years or 10 years," those are different
Yeah.
conversations. 3 to 5 years, I'm gonna recommend you might go with a nice cabinet, but not all plywood boxes and everything like that, because you may not get your money out of it in 3 years.
Okay.
Or if somebody comes and says they wanna do this huge remodel and, they're only gonna be there 2 years, I want to make sure that they understand what the ramifications of that are. If it's like a guy that came to SAS, he's going to be there as a VP for 2 years and has gobs and gobs of money and says, "My wife needs to be happy for the 2 years
Mhm.
we're here." I'm happy to spend his money because
Yeah.
he's making an informed decision.
Okay.
Or she's
Yeah.
making an informed decisions because women actually handle most of that.
Yes, as men would wisely let them do that,
Yes.
so which led me into my next question is are you part marriage counselor sometimes?
Yes, I kinda make the joke that I'm a marriage counselor for their home and sometimes for them. The biggest thing is like I gotta figure out who I'm really working for,
Yeah.
because sometimes I'm working for the husband
Mhm.
and sometimes I'm working for the wife. While I'm always working for both of them,
Yes.
to some people it's more important, like, most people assume the husband goes, "Yeah, I really don't care, whatever she wants." I've been in
Mhm.
plenty of situations where the wife says, "Yeah, I really don't care. It's whatever he wants." And I don't make assumptions being a chauvinistic pig that, "Oh, she's the one that cooks."
Yeah.
No, I made that mistake once.
Is it usually, though, one is the budget person and one is the creative person,
Yes.
and then you have to kinda get them to meet in the
Yes.
middle? Okay.
Yes, that is almost invariably
Alright.
how that works.
'Cause you would not want 2 creative people. They'd drive you nuts. They'd never be able to agree on anything,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. And
Oh,
then it's like, "Oh, it costs how much?
yeah,
Okay, let's spend it." And
yeah,
then you get to the end of it and they go, "We spent how much?"
yeah.
So, yes, it there's a lot of give and take.
Have you walked away from a deal before,
I have,
and why?
um, because I work really well with certain types of personalities and not so well with other types of
Mhm.
personalities. One of the things, uh, I have included in is I tell people up front, I am ADHD. I That's not a joke. You look up ADHD in the dictionary, it's
Yeah.
got my face in a squirrel outfit, right? And I tell them these are the things that are awesome that I bring to the table, and then these are some of the things that drive people crazy that also come to the table.
Okay.
And if that sounds like a product that will work with you, then hey, great, let's do this. If it doesn't, then hey, no, I'll recommend somebody else that will work well with you, because I could build somebody a perfect house or excuse me, if I could build somebody a perfect house and I don't follow up with them necessarily the way they want to be followed up with
Yep.
and the amount of times they want to be followed up with, it could be a perfect product and it would still be a disaster. And they don't need that. They deserve better
Very good.
than a perfect product that feels like a disaster. And I don't need that headache either.
Yeah.
And there are people, I tend to match people with personalities. So if both people are engineer types, I got a friend of mine named Steve that I'm like, this is the guy
Yeah.
for you because he will do a great job for them
Okay.
and they will be extremely happy. So yes,
Yeah. Well,
I will
good.
walk away.
But that's important, though, to manage expectations.
Absolutely.
That's great. Wonderful that you've
Absolutely.
learned that. Folks, if you're looking to add on to your house, build a house, find a house, want to renew it, want to do anything like that, please give Jonathan a call at Glasgow Design and Build. Jonathan, great having you on the show today. Learned about your business and the reality show. I know there's a lot of fun. Sorry for
It
Jed
was.
and everybody didn't take off, but we appreciate you listening today and look forward to seeing you next week on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.